Happy Sunday, Legacy Church. I'm hanging out outside right now because it is just perfectly raining and it's been so stinking hot lately. I'm just really excited that, a little bit of precipitation in my life. Really excited to have Pastor Wendell preaching today. Really excited for you to hear what is on his heart. Before we get to that, before we get to the digital high five, I just want to remind you, today is our Barber Quarantine event. It's going to be so much fun. 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. right outside our campus. We're all going to be spreading out. Please bring a chair. Please bring a mask as well. We will have some tri-tip beans and bread for you to purchase, but if you want to bring your own food, that's totally fine. It's going to be a really safe day and a really awesome day as well. So I just ask that when you arrive, just listen to us. We'll tell you what's up and how to have the most fun possible during the Barber Quarantine event. Again, today, I really hope that you will join us. As always, I want to commend you for your continued financial support. You can give online at ourlegacy.church, or you can mail in your check to 5545 Virginia Avenue in Atascadero. Please continue to write those checks out to Atascadero First Assembly. Again, I'm just so excited that Pastor Wendell is preaching today. We're going to open up with some worship, and then I'm really, again, just so thrilled that you're going to be able to listen to him today. Again, thank you all so much for joining us online. As always, it's time for the digital high five. You ready? You better get up off your couch, or at least, motion towards the TV. Is that cool? 3, 2, 1, high five.
Mountains are where you hide. Oh, how far I'd scale the valleys if you grace the other side. Oh, how long have I chased rivers from lowly seas to where they rise against the rush of grace descending from the source of its supply. 'Cause in the highlands and the heartache, you're neither more or less inclined. I would search and stop at nothing. You're just not that hard to find. Oh, I will praise you on the mountains. a mighty river flowing upwards from a deep but empty grave. I will praise you on the mountains. I will praise you in the mountains in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows. No less faithful in the night has been straight. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and the heartache all the same.
Good morning, church. Welcome. It is a blessing to be here, to be able to preach to you this morning. It's been so long and I miss preaching, but welcome. Today's message is going to be out of John 13:34 through 35. Now, what I hope to do by this, though, is offer a fresh perspective. I mean, it's always to encourage, but maybe some new and fresh insight. At least I pray that it will be. So join me as I read John 13:34 through 35. I give you a new command. Love one another just as I have loved you. You're also to love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. When I was younger, I was the youngest of three for a very long time. And my two older brothers, they would pick on me. They would beat me up incessantly. It made me tougher, though. I actually learned how to fight. But I remember I went to my mom one day and I was complaining to her and I was crying and I was whining about it. They were bigger than me, at least 4 years older than me. And I remember my mama said, stop snitching. And so at that point, I felt I had to take things into my own hands. She wasn't going to help me. She told me to stop snitching. I knew what that meant. And I remember my dad, he kept this gun. And he used his handgun, as an incense holder, and he kept it on his dresser in his room. So he'd put the incense to the tip of the barrel, and he'd burn incense. Well, I remember one day I had enough, and my oldest brother, Michael, he was just picking on me. And so I ran in the room, and I grabbed that gun. Now, I believe that it wasn't loaded, but it very well could have been. And I took that gun, and I put it to the temple of my brother, and I pulled the trigger. I got beat. Rightfully so, my parents beat me. And I deserved it. But I mean, we've all done that, right? Put a gun to the temple of our sibling's head? Okay, no, but maybe you've romanticized or fantasized about someone being gravely injured or even killing someone. It could have even been a sibling or a parent. It could have even been a member of the church body. It's hard. It's hard to love those that you live in close quarters with. You're constantly rubbing up against and bumping up against each other, and so it's hard to have grace for them. The title of today's message is Lower Your Weapons. Lower your weapons. I'm reminded of a few movies, and it's hilarious to me, but it's usually some kind of shady deal in this back alley, and there's three parties, or there's these two parties, and multiple men on each side, and someone makes a quick twitch movement, and all of a sudden guns are just drawn, and so you have guys with two pistols pointed at each other, and they're just going around in a circle, and everyone has a gun on everyone, and everyone has two guns, and they sit there and laugh and say, well, fellas, it looks like we kind of got ourselves into a Mexican standoff. And I just start cracking up at that term, Mexican standoff, and two guns pointed at everybody. There's no way out. There's nowhere to go. So lower your weapons. Lower your weapons. Let me pray for us today. Lord, by your Spirit, penetrate our hearts. Legacy Church, I'm going to give you your point right off the bat. It's your legacy point. If you love, it's hard to hold on to offense. If you love, it's hard to hold on to offense. If you love, it's hard to hold on to offense. I'm reminded of Isaiah 66:12 and 13. And it reads, you will nurse and be carried on her hip and bounced on her lap. As a mother comforts her son, so I will comfort you, and you will be comforted in Jerusalem. God likens himself to a mother. See, he created man mankind in his image, male and female. Now, this is not some women is all the rage message. No, it's not some women all the rage message as much as it is about relationship. PGK's message last week, talking about worship, it actually triggered this message in my mind. He says, as I have loved you, love one another. And he mentions the nursing of an infant. Don't get me wrong, my son Ezekiel, I've prayed for him for years, and he loves me dearly, and I love my son with every fabric of my being. I love him dearly. But there are times at night where when he wakes up and he's needing mama, he's needing to be comforted, his forearm goes right to my throat, and he arches and turns his back, and he's looking for mom. God desires deep and rich intimacy with you. He likened himself to a mother nursing a child. And he says, I will comfort you just as so. You saw that video of Zeke. In that moment, he was inconsolable. Nothing on God's green earth, not me, not his sisters, not a grandma, not granddad, nothing whatsoever could comfort him but the bosom of his mother. And God says, I desire this deep and rich intimacy with you. Just like that, there's going to be a point in your life where nothing in this world, none of the materials of this world, none of the stucco of this world, nothing in this world, nothing that you try to fill that God-shaped hole with will satisfy you. Only deep and rich intimacy with me will satisfy you. God says, I am like that with you. He likens himself to a mother, but I'm focusing more so on a parent-child relationship. You see, we're all created in his image. And he talked about worship last week and things that we do that is as worship with God. We're created in God's image. And so if God himself desires this deep, rich intimacy with us, he desires to walk with us, to talk with us, to hold us, to carry us, to laugh, to rejoice with us. If God desires that, then listen, students, children, parents, but students especially, don't be so tough on your parents when they're all in your business, when they want to laugh with you, when they want to talk with you, when they want to rejoice with you, even cry with you. I mean, we are created in God's image, but also we're created in the image of our parents, are we not? Because us as children of God, being image bearers of God, we raise up little image bearers of God. But not only that, they look like us. Like I'm thinking of a few right now. Christina and Ellie Mathis, you two are twins. I think about Amber and Kenna Langford, again, twins. But regardless of whether or not it's a biological child or it's an adopted child, we as parents are created in the image of God, so it's natural that we have these things. We don't have to necessarily look like our child to love our child, to want to be with our child, to want to hold their hands, to want to walk with them, laugh with them, and talk with them, and rejoice with them. Students, trust your parents. You got to be able to confide in your parents. Allow your parents to counsel you. Because if you do, that will help you avoid the pitfalls and the snares of this life. See, Ecclesiastes says this, what has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. There is nothing new under the sun. Therefore, in 2020, you can't say, oh, that's that new sin? Yeah, that's that 2020 sin. No, there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah, it may come to us in different modes. It may be overwhelming. But as far as I'm concerned, 2020 itself, this entire year so far has been a sin itself. But again, there's nothing new, right? This is not the first time that the world has seen a pandemic, right? So it's nothing new. Not even a new mode in that sense. But keeping with that, if you're able to trust in your parents, if you're able to confide in them, they might be able to help you really avoid the troubles and the pitfalls and the snares of life because they've been through it before. They've lived through it before. They've walked those same shoes or those similar shoes, so to speak. And here's the thing though, parents. Don't forget where you've come from. Don't forget that you were once that child afraid of punishment to reach out to your parents, and so you didn't. In fact, maybe it was that you wanted to do what you wanted to do without the consequences, so you sought to do what you wanted to do, got caught up in it, suffered the consequences. So offer grace to your children as well. Allow them to be able to come to you. I'm talking about this relationship, this comfort. Whether you be grandparents or parents or the children, even parents now, you may have strained relationships with your parents. We are fallen, which means we're marred, which means the image of God is disfigured. In keeping with that, knowing that we're not perfect, I implore you, have grace for each other and also have grace for yourself. Some of us require more grace than others, of which I am chief. I'm guilty. I do require more grace than others. Please continue to pray for me. But if you can keep in mind that people mostly do what they know. They mostly do what makes sense to them. Well, you can say, well, how can she not know that that's wrong? How can they do this and that and the other to me? They should just know that. I get that. They may even know that what they're doing is wrong. What I'm saying is people mostly do what they know. In other words, what they've been taught. In other words, what they've been discipled in. Therefore, they may know that it's wrong, but that's all that they know. And so they might look at the world and say, well, this is what I know, so this is what I'm going to do. We need to be discipled in all phases of life. Don't just expect someone to get it. Don't just expect someone to do good without having been discipled to do good, understanding what it is to do good, shown something other than what they've been raised in. Help people receive multiple tools to live this life. If you don't, you might have strained relationships. Some of you parents, you probably have strained relationships with your parents. And some of those grandparents have probably never even seen their grandchildren. But you parents right now, you might be living in that tension, which is causing that strain. And if you don't do something about it now, that relationship might be just how it is with you and your parents, but it's not too late. And it starts with loving one another. It starts with having grace for each other and for yourself, because you will mess up. You will. It's inevitable. See, the standard is God. He's perfect. Imperfect people cannot achieve perfection. You will mess up. Do not forget the legacy point. If you love, it's hard to hold on to offense. If you love, it's hard to hold on to offense. The key verse today is in John 13, but it's 35. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples. I'm reminded of 1 Peter when it says, above all, maintain constant love for one another, since love covers a multitude of sins. My wife, Jamie, is a picture, I won't say of perfection, but she is the model of this. She has loved me through a multitude of sins. I love you, baby, so much, and thank you. But I remember recently on our way to Gilroy, Jamie asked me the question, because I always go back to apologizing to her for the things that I've done, and I always feel so bad, I always feel so guilty. And I think the Holy Spirit prompted this question within her heart, and she says, have you forgiven yourself? And I had to think about it. Newsflash, if you have to think about whether or not you've forgiven yourself, then you probably have not forgiven yourself. And tears just flowed from my eyes. And so I'm still in the process of forgiving myself in ways that I've hurt my bride. See, love covers a multitude of sins. Have grace and forgiveness for others and for self. Me being a young husband and a young father, I only had one tool. And in this moment, I want to take the chance to apologize to my daughters, Nani, Rai, and Patty, The others, yes, I'm not perfect, but you three, you got the younger daddy. And daddy's sorry, and I love you. And daddy's learning to forgive himself, and I pray that you can forgive me. There's nothing new under the sun. I've said that, that's true. But we live once. We live once. Therefore, this is all new to us, meaning this is our first time encountering the things that we encounter. How could you not have grace? Whenever you play games, you love to say, oh, I get a do-over. Do I get a mulligan? Be gracious towards others and towards yourself. Lower your weapons of eternal destruction. Lower your weapons of manipulation, of jealousy, of bitterness, of deceit, of contempt. That's a good one. Google it. Of contempt, of rivalry, of gossip, of slander, of unforgiveness. Lower those weapons of eternal destruction. Instead, pick up a tool or help someone else pick up the tool of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. And that self-control is a big one. It kind of binds them all together. Help people. Love people. No more Mexican standoffs. Lower the figurative weapon pointed at your sibling's temple, whether it's the nuclear family or it's the church family. Lower that figurative weapon pointed at your siblings' or parents' temples. Love one another. And then even through this pandemic where we've been so close and forced to rub elbows and tempers may flare, and you might say, just go somewhere. Where I'm gonna go? I can't go outside. Think about this. What new ways have you been loving people? Better yet, just what have you been doing new with people? I'm gonna miss going on hikes with Tayon. We've been doing that. And it's been some of the most joyous times. And then I also been hanging out with Jacob and Tim over at Jacob's house. Please pray for me as I hang out with Jacob more. Also pray for Ashley as well. But I'm gonna miss hanging out with Jacob and Tim and even exercising and trying to get Jacob's cardio right and things like that. Those are new ways of loving people. And here's the thing, when the world reopens, continue to do those things. Love one another. If you love, it's hard to hold on to offense. Join me in prayer. Lord, a new command you gave was for us to love one another. It's a non-negotiable. Help us to love one another, not necessarily in emotion. We don't have to like someone to love someone. Loving them is about the deeds and the words that we speak and how we carry ourselves and toward them. We don't have to like someone to love someone. Lord, help us to love each other as a church body. Help us to love each other within our families. By our love, may they know that we are your disciples. Lord, I ask what you will of us, and this you have asked. Lord, I ask that you will what you ask. Ask what you will of us, but will what you ask. Lord, I love you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Church, we have something here in what we call the next step. And we love to help you all take your next step in life, but it's only fitting and only appropriate that we as pastors model that next step. My next step some weeks back was, God was telling me for a while now to go ahead and step down and be with your family and spend more time with your family. And so as much as it pained me to step down, I had to pray to God, Lord, please allow me to be able to preach your word. And as I sat in the congregation in the sanctuary, I was hoping that, okay, Pastor Garrett would throw me a bone here and there and I'd be able to preach because I would just die inside. Well, God said, take your next step. And so I came in to record the message of letting you all know that I'll be stepping down, but I'll be staying here in the congregation. Well, that same day, when I came in to record, afterwards when I left, I got a call from a pastor up north. And what he was looking for was a member of his preaching team. He wanted to fill that role. And so I said, okay, that's interesting. I want to be disciplined to what it is that God is telling me to do right now and being with my family. It makes no sense to sit there and step down and say, I need to spend more time with my family, and then to go back into something that's going to pull me and rip me away from my family, albeit ministry. And so as I heard more, it will be simply that I'm preaching and being in the life of the congregation, going to a community group, all things that I would be doing normally. So preaching and being with people and loving on people. And so with that, we finally got an offer a few Sundays ago. And our family will be moving up north to Napa. And so we will be leaving. And it's painful. And I remember thinking to myself, stepping down in the middle of a pandemic, Lord, I don't see anything on the horizon. Please provide a way to be able to preach your word. And all I saw was pitch blackness. No one's hiring. No one's doing anything. How will I be able to preach your word? Lord said, take your next step. I took that next step into a darkened room. As soon as I took that next step into a darkened room, the Lord illuminated that room, and he provided an opportunity and a blessing to go forth and preach his word and take his next step. So please be praying for myself and my family as we move to Napa and become a part of Napa Hillside Christian. But even in that, 2020 has taken a lot from a lot of us. And 2020 has taken a lot from my babies. And by babies, I mean my seniors. Our 2020 seniors are also taking their next step in life. They're going to go out and forge their new path, whether they're going to college, whether they're going into the military, whether they're going into the workforce. They're going to be taking their next steps in life. And so pray for them that they honor God in those next steps all along the way. And stay tuned, because this is the conclusion of today's service. But stay tuned as we honor my babies, our 2020 senior graduates. God bless you.
To soften my heart and break me apart, I need you to open my eyes and see that you're shaping my life. All I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. I need you to soften my heart, to break me apart. I need you to pierce through the dark and cleanse every part of me. All I am, I surrender. Trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. It's yours.